Hey, what's up everyone? King here. Today what I wanted to do is I went into the SkillCapped Discord and I asked users about some of the biggest questions that they needed answered in Valorant. What sort of things do most players struggle with, and what advice could I give them to try to remedy those issues? So today, that's exactly what we're going to do. I picked out all of the best questions and hopefully I can give you some higher level insight on how to improve. Along with answering all of these questions though, I'll also have the editors throwing up some of the courses on the website on screen that I think would really help anyone wondering about these specific questions. All of the courses on the website are backed by our rank improvement guarantee, meaning that if you don't find the improvement that you're looking for while using our service, it's literally no risk. I can only provide so much insight in this video, so if you're really looking for the fastest way to improve, I highly recommend checking out skillcapped.com. And other than that, let's get into the video. Rolling straight into question number 1, Prophet asks, how can I beat a team that just has better aim than mine? I think this is a pretty relevant question for most players, especially in lower ranks, because there's just such a wide variety of players in plat and below. They're not even all smurfing, which is what many people think. Some players just have really crazy aim. This is actually something that's really important to learn though, because at higher ranks, everyone has really crazy aim. I'd say my aim is probably pretty lower tier when it comes to immortal players, but I'm still absolutely capable of acing if you give me the chance, and that's kind of the key factor here. You can't give these players the chance to showcase their good aim. Don't give them fair duels. Constantly double up, make sure you're close enough to trade players out, and play crossfires. They are going to win their duels, so don't duel them. Obviously, this is easier said than done, but that's the general premise. Why do I aim better in Deathmatch and Unrated than in competitive? This one probably comes down to nerves a little bit, but the other thing is people don't really play Deathmatch or Unrated the same way that they play matchmaking. In Deathmatch, people are running all over the place. Nobody is really worried about dying because there's literally no risk to dying other than just that 2 seconds that you have to wait to respawn. This is why you see people full swing everything and give you all of the information in the world. When someone swings me in Deathmatch, I normally know that they're going to swing me. I hear them sprint up to the corner and then they run around it, or they were just shooting other enemies right around the corner as well. The real game doesn't play like that, and I don't always know when I'm going to be swung. I know it's possible, I know it might happen, but I don't really know if or when. Also factoring in utility and teammates, it's not just a one-to-one comparison. Don't get me wrong, Deathmatch is still a good warm-up though, and I highly encourage players to play a few DMs every day to train their aim. You'll just need to recognize that if you really want to win more gunfights, it's going to come to more positional things rather than aim itself. Here's a good one. I watch so many tutorials, but I still can't climb out of the rank that I'm in. This is kind of a tough question to answer without watching your gameplay myself, but most commonly, if you find you've plateaued, it's because you're either not recognizing your mistakes or you're not fixing them. This is the problem when people say things like, I have perfect crosshair placement, but I'm still not climbing. The truth is they don't have perfect crosshair placement, and by convincing themselves that they do, they're preventing themselves from actually fixing it. It's okay to make mistakes. In fact, I built my entire career on YouTube from making mistakes. It's all just trial and error. I'm not some exceptionally talented individual. I just make a lot of mistakes and I try to learn from them. In fact, I wouldn't even say that I learn quickly. There have probably been times where I know something is a mistake, but I'll still do that thing 4 to 5 times before I finally actually stop myself from doing it. I'm talking mostly about content creation for myself, but in Valorant, it's all the same thing. You know it's not a good idea to peek multiple targets at the same time, so stop wide swinging angles where you know there's going to be 3 enemies there. Like I said though, I haven't seen your gameplay, so it's really hard for me to diagnose your issue. But if I were you, I'd go through and look at some of your deaths in recent games and try to see if there are any common patterns. For this next one, we got a bunch of questions about comms, so I'm kind of just going to do a catch-all on that. The first part is players asking how to communicate with teammates when they're not listening. I'm going to put myself out there and say that none of these answers are going to be super satisfying, and that's just because you don't have control over somebody else's free will. If someone won't listen to you, you can't make them listen to you. That being said, there are some ways that you can make players more likely to listen to you, and that takes us to Strike's question: how can I communicate suggestions to teammates that are playing suboptimally without sounding aggressive? There are probably 3 things that I'd recommend for this. The first is that your tone of voice is incredibly important, so no matter how tilted you are, you can't make it sound like you're upset with your teammates. It is important to get them on your side. Let's do a test right here. Tell me which one of these comms is more likely to get your team on your side. Hey Reyna, can you please blind? Hey Reyna, could you please blind? Try to convince them that they're your friend. You can trash talk them in Discord all you want, but talking to your teammates is meant to help you win the game, so don't make having voice chat a handicap instead. It's also really important that you're communicating in general before you suggest stuff like this, because if your first words out of your mouth are you telling me how to play, I'm going to get irritated with you. Now, after you're pretty sure your team is on your side, try to suggest alternatives to your teammates. You can't just tell your Killjoy not to push in front of her utility, you need to suggest alternatives. Ask her to set up a crossfire with you, or ask her to place her alarm bot in mid instead, or really just anything specific. Which of these do you think is more helpful to a player? Killjoy, stop pushing in front of your util, or hey Killjoy, can you try to play behind your utility? When you die early on in the round, we lose a lot of map control. You see, in the second one, you didn't just tell her that something was bad, you also followed it up with why it's bad, so she can understand why you're telling her that. Lastly, it's also really important that you're specific with your suggestions. For Reyna players, my favorite way to tell them to entry is by asking them to flash. If you ask your teammate to flash, they're kind of already in the action of entering, so they'll just go in and do it anyway. However, if I tell my Reyna to just entry, she might think that I'm complaining that she's not entrying and then decide to go throw the game or something like that, and I don't know, man. Valorant players are really insecure. I don't know what to tell you. If it feels like you're walking on thin ice around players sometimes, it's because you are. Valorant players are incredibly insecure. On that note though, the final question on comms is going to cover how do I deal with toxic teammates without muting them? This is a little lame, but I'm going to answer this question with another question. Why are you so strongly opposed to muting them? In my experience, there are 3 types of people who play Valorant. Obviously, this is a generalization, but just follow me for a little bit here. The first type of people genuinely communicate because they just want to win the game. These are players who are just working with their teammates, trying to constantly communicate their next move, and they just genuinely want to win. They're not always incredibly nice, but they're not going to take out their frustration on people in competitive. They will just say GG and they will go next. The second type are people who want to work with their teammates but have a tendency to take the game a little bit too seriously sometimes. Their comms are still there, they're still working with you, but they may be throwing a little bit of blame here and there. They're not going to tell you that you're terrible at the game if you make a mistake, but you might sense a little bit of frustration from them if you're having a bad game. To be entirely honest, I probably fall into this category of player. I'm not the type of person to yell at somebody for playing poorly. People have bad games, it's whatever. However, I've definitely thrown a game or two by picking a fight with the third type of player, which is the person who only communicates things when they are upset about something. They will never make callouts. They will never praise their teammates or try to set up a play with you. If you make a good play, it's because the enemies are stupid, and if they make a good play, it's because they are better than everybody else in the lobby and they don't know how they ended up in this elo. These players are not worth talking to. As mentioned, they will never say anything helpful. They will just complain and complain and complain until you inevitably lose the game and your mental. Obviously, if the person is the first type of player, that's great, awesome teammates. But if they're the second type of teammate where you're getting some useful comms from them, but they seem a little frustrated, maybe try leveling out with them. Like I said, I'm probably closer to the second type than the first one, but if someone says, hey man, you sound a little frustrated right now, I get it, but I feel like you're taking it out on us right now, and I'm just trying to win this game. Like, what am I supposed to respond to that other than shutting up and playing the game? We have no control over their free will. Maybe that makes them more upset, but at least at that point, you've done all that you can and you can mute them at least knowing that you tried. Most people aren't mean. They just hate losing and lose track of what it means to be respectful in the moment. Finally, if you're trying to figure out if they're closer to the second or third type of person, just try to think back to how many useful things that they've actually said in that game. Personally, I mute people even if they are just making bad callouts. They don't have to be toxic, but like if they're throwing off my play, it's just not worth it. Comms are way less valuable than you think in lower ranks, so I really don't encourage you to put up with anything that is going to make you even slightly tilted. Moving on to our next question though, why am I missing when my crosshair is on them? Pretty basic topic, but I thought I would give an interesting take. The short answer is that your crosshair probably wasn't actually on them when you shot. You could slow down your clips in some apps if you record them, and you could clearly see that your crosshair is off when you think that it might be on. But assuming your crosshair was actually on them, let's talk about that. All of the weapons in Valorant are affected by something called first shot accuracy. This refers to how accurate the first shot out of the weapon is. For weapons like the Guardian, this is very accurate. For weapons like the Classic, it is not as accurate. For weapons like the Vandal, it's sort of accurate, and this is probably the biggest culprit of this problem. As you'll see when I'm shooting at this target, my bullets don't all land in the same spot, despite me not moving my crosshair at all. This is exaggerated the longer the distance is due to the trajectory of the bullet and how large the target is. If you look at my beautiful drawing here, you'll get an idea of how this works. If I am 5 meters away from a target and my crosshair is on their head, I am never going to miss. However, if I am 50 meters from a target, I might miss every now and then. This is the answer to why you might miss shots even if your crosshair is directly on the target, which may sound stupid to some, but I wanted to propose another perspective. For every time that you miss because your crosshair is directly on the target's head, how many times do you think that you hit because your crosshair didn't quite make it to the target's head, but the variance in the first shot accuracy made up for it? I don't even know how I would begin to do a study like this, but it's always been an interesting thought that I've had. There are probably a lot of shots that you landed that you really had no business landing, and that just has to do with the small amount of RNG in the game. Our next question comes from Apple Revenant, and he says, when nothing works, what do you do? I love this question because we've all been there. Sometimes it feels like you're trying really hard, but you just can't seem to make anything happen. In these cases, what I recommend is to try to do something that just sounds a little ridiculous. I mean, you're losing anyway, what do you have to lose? A specific example that comes to mind for me is one time when I was playing on Bind and my team went 2-10 on offense. We kind of just chalked this game up as a loss, but actually we were able to even it out once we switched halves and brought the game into overtime. As many of you have probably experienced before, that feeling when you go back to offense and it's like, all right, guys, what do we do now? So what I did was I said, hey guys, we know that we're really bad at attacking. That's fine. We tried defaulting. We tried splitting sites. We tried selling fakes. Nothing's worked. So hear me out. Let's go 5-man showers and we're going to smoke the left side of showers and take heaven control with our jet. We won that round, and then we won the game on defense afterwards. This is pretty anecdotal, but basically what I'm recommending is that if nothing is working, just try playing like you've got nothing to lose. Moving on to our last question though from Sleepy, they say, why am I such doggy doo-doo at this game? Well, obviously the answer to that is that you are not subscribed to SkillCapped.com. Our Academy course will get you straight up to date with everything that you need to know about Valorant. Not to mention all of the agent courses we have available made by actual Radiant One Tricks with thousands of hours on the agent of choice will get you up to speed real fast. In all seriousness, Valorant takes a bunch of time to get good at, but there are a bunch of common practices that we can help you with learning to speed up the process. So if you're looking to improve quickly, be sure to check out SkillCapped.com, link in the description below. And other than that, those are all of the questions I'm going through today. Hopefully some of these questions help you guys out. There were a bunch of other questions I would have loved to have gone through, but this video would have to be like nearly an hour long, I'm sure. As always though, my name is King and we here at SkillCapped want to thank you all for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.